Christmas, everybody! It's me, your boy, waifus, Sean VR. Yep, that's me, Sean VR. At it again with another video. And we're going to talk about the gift that keeps on giving because it's December. Warhammer. And in particular, how to make a Space Marine. So, how to make a Space Marine? Well, first off, you need to know the guy that made the Space Marines, okay? He is a sociopath. He is a madman, okay? He is the emperor of mankind. He in golden armor with black flowing hair, the body of an Adonis, okay? He's the man, Biggie, the emperor, okay? And he's an old guy. He's been around for forever. He's been around for like I don't know, like 50,000, 60,000 years. Okay, he is a thing called a perpetual. We won't. If you know what perpetuals are, leave a comment below. Give a little explanation to people in the comment section because it's too much to go into in a video. Okay, but the Emperor is a perpetual. He can live forever. Doesn't matter what happens to him. He'll just keep coming back. But he's only one man. He's only one man. And despite having godlike powers, he can't do everything. So he had to make the Space Marines. Okay, and the Space Marines are the ultimate warriors, kinda. So the Emperor's just a man still, right? He can make mistakes. And he made a lot of mistakes. There's a lot of different types of Space Marines out there that are just, you know, not quite working as intended. Okay, some of these Space Marines have slight issues where, okay, well, here's a good example. Blood Angels, one of the most popular types of Space Marines, okay, they have this problem where occasionally they'll look at someone and be like, friend, you're looking a bit familiar. What? I've never met you before. No, you look familiar. Yes, I know your name, Horace. Horace. And that's because that guy killed their daddy. Yeah, they have a chapter-wide PTSD of their dad being killed, but they think they are their dad, and they're fighting the guy who killed him, Horace. Okay, you may have heard of him. He started the heresy. Pretty famous guy, this Horace. So there's a bunch of, and there's even the Space Wolves who actually occasionally turn into giant wolves. Things. Werewolves. Calm down, furries. I know. Men, giant buff men that turn into werewolves. Okay, watch yourself. Check yourself. Okay. You know, these are just things that the Emperor, you know, he's not perfect. He's still a man. And he's going to make some mistakes. One of the mistakes he made was letting his kids decide how they recruit new soldiers. Because when he first made the Space Marines, okay, the Space Marines were an egalitarian bunch, okay? They were about equality. All men were equal. They didn't believe in religion. They thought the Emperor was just this awesome dude. This awesome dude who knew how the world was supposed to work and how the galaxy was supposed to be ran. Okay? They were all about him. Now, what happened was, though, the Emperor went into space, found 20 of his kids, and was like, you know what? Even though I've just met you and you're my actual kids, that I lost in space for some reason. They were cast into the warp, which is like their version of sci-fi get out of jail card. About the Emperor is he always thinks he's right. And he thought, well, these are my kids, so they'll know what's right. They didn't. What happens is, how you recruit a Space Marine is 99.9% of the time, they take some 12 to 14-year-old kids, okay, dump them in an arena, make them either fight to the death, okay, they just make 14-year-old kids fight to the death, or, get this, okay, they will just tell a village that they're gods, and that village will then every year send their biggest, strongest boys against all the other villages' biggest, strongest boys. Have them climb a mountain and fight a beast. Whoever survives, once like in 100 years or something, the Space Marines come down like angels from the sky in their spaceships to these poor primitive world dwellers and lift them up. And they're like, you will now become a space marine, an angel of the Emperor. And then these poor kids who probably have PTSD, just watched all their friends die, are getting ripped off a planet by spacemen that they think are angels. Okay, and the worst part about this is the space marines deliberately leave these worlds as Stone Age hellholes filled with beasts and monsters, so they raise up the most hardcore of boys, okay? And it has to be boys in particular because it's in the lore. I don't care what people say. The lore says that they have to be boys because they eventually turn into the person their gene seed's based off of. And the gene seed is just, it's a bit of nonsense. It's this sack in their necks. Have you seen Space King? Space King's pretty accurate. Just take the, you know, the sack from there and put it in their neck, okay? This thing makes them what they are. It has all the genes that they need to turn into a space marine, okay? You know what happens when you die as a space marine? One of their doctors, okay? One of their doctors, they're just called apothecaries, which is just an awesome name. Apothecary, I require healing! Their apothecaries come by, right? And you're like, yeah, hold still a second. You're dying? Oh, that's a shame. I don't think you're going to make it back to the ship. Let me just take this big needle and go... Yep. Oh, well, that was a shame. Just give me that ball sack out of your neck there. Yeah. That's how they get the gene seed back, because they can't make more of it. Well, they can now. They can. But, like, for most of Warhammer 40k lore, they couldn't make more of this shit. It was really rare. So they had to just take it from dead space marines or dying space marines. And then that gene seed sack thing would get implanted inside a young recruit. And we're talking... I mean, as I said, these guys are like 12, 14 years old. Like, you don't get old space marine recruitment because it just doesn't work. They have to get kids as they're going through puberty. So, because their bodies just can't take it. Like, they replace all their organs. They give them, like, a third lung, a second heart. They, like, you know, they make it so that their stomachs allow them to spit acid. They can... After all the gene manipulation, they can literally eat dead bodies and get the memories of the dead people. Okay, there was an incident where some Chaos Space Marines... I don't want to get into it, but they're just bad Space Marines, right? So one of these bad Space Marines ate an orc. Okay, and there's space orcs in Warhammer, right? So he ate a space orc, and he got its memories. And him and his buddies were like, how do we land this plane? Because they stole one of the space orcs' planes. And they're like, right, okay, well, I hate to tell you this, guys, but they don't have landing gear on these planes. And his buddies were like, what do you mean they don't have landing gears? How do we land the plane? We crash. What? So you can learn some very valuable information from eating your enemies, apparently. Another thing to do with, like, Space Marine recruitment is... most of them die. I think it's something like a 20 to 30% like success rate, and that's like at each stage of like them advancing, because first they have to change all their genes, right? Then they have to put them through psychological indoctrination. Then they have to put them through psychic indoctrination. Okay, just to make sure they're not going to be too easily manipulated by the evil guys in the universe, right? Then they have to survive the training, which is usually under live fire. These guys all day, okay? Then, if they make it through all of that, they become what's called a Space Marine Scout, okay? And the Space Marine Scout is basically just a baby Space Marine, and not everyone gets past this point. There's some guys who are just permanently stuck as baby Space Marines with big beards. And they help train the other baby Space Marines, okay? Now, these baby Space Marines, they have to go out with the big daddy Space Marines who are fully grown in big armor and stuff. And they're just got, like, some armor and a little gun. Well, little for a Space Marine, okay? And they have to go out and do the scouting, as their name implies, the Scouts, okay? And That must suck balls, because you're seeing these big clad warriors marching through the battlefield like gods, mowing down enemies with their big guns. Like, it must look so cool, and then you're just sitting there with your little pea-shirt being like, pew, pew. Man, one day I'm gonna be like one of those guys, then suddenly you just get like a laser beam through your skull, and it's game over. Because you have to survive being a scout for like 20 years or something before you can even become a Space Marine. And Space Marines live for like almost indefinitely. They only die in battle, okay? There's no such thing as an old Space Marine, kinda. Not true, kinda. But they just can't really die of old age. But they will die in battle because they're just always fighting. You don't live a long life if you're always fighting. So they have to get through all of that. You have to get through all of that. And then eventually they will become a fully armored up Space Marine with all the weapons and all the cool stuff. And then they need to survive their first battles. And they're fighting some of the wildest things in the universe. They're fighting space orcs, which are an endless tide of green comedy relief. Okay, the happiest guys in the whole universe, the orcs. Okay, they have to survive those guys. Those guys are physically as strong as the Space Marines. And the Space Marines are supposed to be like gods amongst humans. But the average orc is the same strength as a Space Marine. They're just really stupid. And they have to survive those guys who really like fighting in melee combat. But when they're not fighting in melee combat, they got the DACA. And they're just like, they have like ridiculously powerful weapons. So they have to survive them. That's one of the most common enemies. One of the other most common enemies, if you played Space Marine 2, is the Tyranids. The Tyranids, they're basic guys. Their claws can rip through Space Marine armor. Common enemy for them to fight. Chaos, which are literal demons who use space magic to fight you with. And they've got psychic powers, and they have actual demons, and they have Space Marines that are bad with them. And they just have all this stuff. They have actual gods. They have actual gods protecting them. And you have to fight them as a Space Marine with a gun. And suddenly you, as a big, powerful warrior, must feel insignificant. But it's okay, because you got that psychological indoctrination going on. So you think you're unstoppable. So you'll just stand there and fight them all. It's fine. In fact, sometimes the Space Marine's willpower is enough, okay? Is enough to fight through like any of the psychic and magic powers, because they're just believe enough that they're protected by the big Emperor guy. And you know what? That's fine. That's fine. And you know one of the best things about Space Marines? Even though they're big, stupid... Well, they're not big and stupid. They're big and super intelligent, right? But the best thing about them is, like, they're really relatable. Some of them are really funny. They have friends. They have family. Some Space Marines even let you go see your family after you've been recruited. It's like a big part of their culture. Not all Space Marines do that, just some. Some Space Marines are even allowed to do the, they're allowed to do the dirty, they can do that. Not all of them want to, but like very few want to. In fact, I don't even know if these guys want to. They just do it because they can. And they just have regular kids. It's kind of like, I don't know if you guys know this, but it's kind of like the chicken and the dinosaur thing. They figured a few years ago they took a chicken egg and they activated all the dinosaur genes inside of the chicken that's in there, and they theorized that if that chicken had babies, it would just be regular chickens, and not dinosaur chickens. It's kind of cool. It's kind of cool. But most Space Marines are celibate monks who would not dare touch the flesh of a woman or man, because their only love is for the Emperor. And that's cool. That's cool too, I suppose. I don't know if I was a big buff Space Marine. I think I would like some ladies probably, but or some femboy. I don't know. And then like some other fun stuff is like Space Marines have hobbies. Like a lot of Space Marines like do painting. They write books. Sometimes they'll run governments for a laugh. Like that'll be something some Space Marines do in their spare time, is they go help local planet governments out. Just, because they feel like it and they just want to do some paperwork instead of fighting sometimes. As you do. I don't know. Space Marines are kind of like, they're interesting. I definitely think the recruitment process is a bit wild though. Sometimes as well, sometimes they just go down to like cities that have got really shit areas in them. So there's cities called hive worlds, and those cities have an underhive, which is basically just their sewer system. But what they do is, you know how in Futurama, there's New York, then there's New York, so they built over top of the old New York. That's what they do in Warhammer. Like, humans build cities up the way into what they call hive cities. And the very bottom level is basically like a feral jungle world with monsters and mutants and weird people running around in it. Space Marines will go down there to recruit new Space Marines if they find any like non-mutated humans. And they're like, you can survive down here. You could be a Space Marine. The galaxy's way worse than this. Come with us. As they lie. And that's kind of cool too. I mean, like, a lot of these guys must be like, oh, me leave world, become strong like you. Oh, you know, like, that's kind of cool. I really like Warhammer. I would really love to do some more Warhammer videos. Just giving my interpretation of Warhammer. I really like to do like an orc video. I think that would be cool. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed my weird Space Marine. I hope you enjoyed my Space Marine rant. Please remember to like and subscribe. You can also follow me on Twitch at SeanVR. You can also find me on Twitter and Blue Sky. And I'll see you later. Goodbye, everybody.